Joel back with us today. I was fortunate to host a session with him yesterday, and he was on coaching through cognition and learned a lot about just how to question kids and open up their learning and put them in charge of it. So we're excited to have him back with us today. He joins us from San Antonio, where he is the director of coaching and player development for Pass Academy. And while he's doing that, he's also a professor at UTSA, teaching various coaching, leadership, and soccer coaching courses. So anybody looking to continuing their education, there you go. Over his last 34 years, he's coached at a high school club, college, regional ODP, WPSL, national level coach. And, anybody who's been doing it that long and at that level, we know is going to bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to us. So, again, excited to have him. He's been honored as the NSCAA, USC National Staff Coach of the Year and the National Youth Coach of the Year for girls soccer. But before I do turn it over to him, I want to encourage all of our members to get in and vote for the open board positions. I think voting closes at noon today, so you still have a little bit of time. And lastly, during the presentation, go ahead and access the Q&A. Anytime you have any questions or thoughts, we want to encourage you guys to be active. And, I know Neil would like to see the feedback from you as well. So anytime you have something to add or question, pop in that Q&A and we'll get to it as soon as we can. But other than that, I'll go ahead and turn it over now to Neil and his presentation on finding your team's purpose.
Okay. Thank you, James, for that. Thank you to Tasco for inviting me out for the second presentation. As we said there earlier, we presented one on coaching through cognition yesterday, which I imagine will be open on video for all to review and watch at a later date. Went through some good ideas on it and had the grateful support of Ronald Reagan High School soccer players. Today's slightly different though. Today we're going to go into working on our team's purpose and finding out how to support and grow an agreed purpose by the team. All right, maybe kind of like a little bit like a mission, but what is our team's mission? But let me start this by coming in and sharing the screen. So I'm just going to hit these two. All right, so we should have the screen shared here. And like James said, I'm the director of the Players Academy of Soccer Skills here in San Antonio. It's a technical skills academy, teaching and presenting to players and supporting through clinics and sharing the idea and the expansion of technical play to players. I teach 3 courses at the University of Texas in San Antonio. I teach the coaching methodologies, coaching leadership, and science of soccer, and then I guide and support the practicum, the coaching practicum, which is like an internship in the fields where we place coaches into specific roles. If anybody would like to get in touch with me, my email is there, and my Twitter is Verbal Vitamins, and Instagram is Pass Academy. Now, if we look on that right-hand side there, the little picture, and this is where we're going to advance from today. So this is my personal coaching why. All right. So if I talk about this and I discuss this, oops, Daisy, let's come into here, come back one. Talk about this and discuss this. This is what I do. And how do I know what I do, what my reason is, what my purpose is personally? And it took a long time to evolve, but we came through it through a system of learning. And it initiated out, as I imagine most of us would understand this gentleman, and most of us have followed Simon Sinek. He produced one of the most popular TED Talks back in the early 2000s on his definition of why. And through this, he created a system of internal out, a brain-based system where we're working from the inside of the brain out to the external areas. And it was about decision-making and process-making and how we actually inspire people. And it was about starting with the why, then the how, and then the what. And generally, though, however, he found most people started with the what, which is on the outside, the external area of the brain. So we don't actually get into the why or the how. We don't actually understand the purpose. We don't understand the process, just the product. And a big saying came out of this from him, and it was, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Think about that now for your team. Players don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that's the sort of area we're going to go into today. And it's going to create our cause or our beliefs into our team. So moving forward, mine is to share the opportunity of empowerment so that through our culture, players create their own success. It took a long time to put those words on paper, and it took a lot of background to put those words on paper as a personal statement. But we're not dealing with the personal today. We're going to deal with the team. And how are we going to make this happen? So the objective of today's training, of today's presentation, is to support coaches in establishing a process to find their team's joint purpose, cause, and beliefs. The driving force behind everything their team does. Now, it's not yours as a coach. If it's yours as a coach, we will fail and we will hit roadblocks and we will get anxiety and we will start getting blame and shame, because it might be yours as a person's, but is it actually the team's? Without them being committed to it, without them having joint ownership of it, it's not really theirs. So you're forcing something onto someone that they don't really believe in. Think about that for a moment. And then think back to sometimes the identity of our teams and where we go with our teams. So some questions for you, please. Put answers in the box. Throw your answers into the box. Why does your team exist? Here's the first question. Why does your team exist? All right. We got any answers coming back through?
Not yet.
Okay. I can rhetorically challenge it as well if it's not there. But why does your team exist? Okay. So our team exists. Is it to play soccer? Is it to win? I've got a big white function on my board here I'm trying to get rid of. Is it to win? Is it to grow people? Notice we say there, grow people, and not necessarily grow players. We spoke about this yesterday. If we coach the person first, we'll get the player second and we'll get double input out of it. But does it exist to fulfill a hole in a program? Does it exist as physical activity and physical exercise? So we've got to understand, why does your team exist? Is it there to challenge the state championship? Is it there this year just to get out of conference? And it's going to change each year, especially through the high school model, as we graduate out four-year players. Next thought then, how does it look when your team's performing at its very best? So Jason, question for you. How would your team look when it's performing at its very best?
You said James?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You know, I think it kind of changes from year to year. I know in the past, our best has always been possession. So when we can hold the ball and move it around and make teams defend and chase, I know that has been our best. I believe this year, you know, we've got more speed and quickness up top, and it's going to be counterattack and go with speed as much as we can. So I think this year our best is going to be, you know, be dangerous in the final third, look to high press teams, win the ball and go.
And that's a forward-thinking vision. He's not exactly sure that's going to be his team, but that's what he'd like to believe that success looks like. So he's going to work towards that. So if we have this guiding light for us, this compass to guide us in the right direction, we can help support that. What are your team's purposes, roles, and beliefs? Have you ever asked your team what their actual purpose is within the program, or what the player's role is within the team? Think about that. Do you know your team? How well do you know your team? Just came out of a presentation there by Keith Mayer talking about creating and connecting relationships with players. It's more important creating that relationship with the person than it is coaching the player. So when we challenge ourselves to the purpose of our team, the role of our team within the program, if we're a JV coach coaching players, what is the role of the team, of the JV team within our program? Is it to have fun and enjoy yourself? Is it to grow players for the next level, for the varsity team each season? Is it to prepare players? Is it to just produce physical activity in people who are interested in soccer? What are these roles? And what do we believe in that takes us there? And then the last question here, and again, I'll hit James with it. James, who do you personally believe defines your team's culture?
I think it's our players. Every year I tell the guys, this is your team, this is your program. I'm your guide. I'm going to help you get where you want to go. So we sit down, we kind of define, our core values each year. We define what we want our culture to look like. And then, a lot of it is left up to the players and how, they're going to be the guides of it. What are they going to show the JV and the JV2 teams? How they going to play, compete, and just what they want their lasting memories of Coppell soccer to be. We try to put it in their hands and let them be the ones who are going to define the culture. And obviously as the head coach, we've got to steer them the right way. And make sure they're making the most beneficial decisions to the team that's going to promote our program in the best way. But for everyone that comes into the program, they know what it means and what it looks like to be a Coppell soccer player. So, they know the players before them have set a certain standard and traditions and culture. So, they know what that needs to look like. And now we turn it over to them each year to carry on those traditions and those cultures.
Yeah, I love listening to that. I love the idea that you're a facilitator driving the bus of your team then. And if you're driving that bus, you're letting your team come on the bus and they're sitting in their seats. They're sitting next to their friends, their teammates. However, you might realize a few facilitating it are unbalancing the bus and you got to move them around into a different chair or a different seat or re-roll them. And then when you said about your core values, they change each year. Now, I don't know how much they change, but I imagine their definition might be slightly rewritten. Our core values
Right.
are our beliefs, what we're going. And as we
Right.
graduate a team out, as we graduate a fourth year out, we might still have the same values because that's what we believe in as a team, as a school, but we might change some of the behaviors of those values. Would you say that's a positive thought?
Right. I agree completely. We have, right when you walk in the locker room, the core values on the board, on a, board we made so they could see. But yeah, I would agree that, how they get to believe those core values and apply it to themselves, it changes with each year and then also each individual. And like I said, we want to put them in charge of it. But yeah, the core values are there for a reason because we believe it's what's defined Coppell soccer. But yeah, for each player, it's got to have meaning to them as well.
And that meaning is shared. And I think that define of the values or the core values. And I think that really defines different areas we go through. But achieving this idea of creating this purpose, this aim, within our team, a great book by General Stanley McChrystal wrote a book called Team of Teams. And we have these teams within our teams. We have defenders. We have goalkeepers. Do we link our goalkeeper to our defenders? Is that part of our purpose of our team? Or do we train them independently? We have our forwards. We have our coaches. We have our support staff, our managers, our administrators. In the college game, we have compliance. We have all sorts of different people to come across. But we all need to serve so that together everyone achieves more. We don't need people fighting the system. We don't need assassins in there. We don't need energy vampires, as John Gordon might call them. All right. We need to ensure that everyone is valued and valuable. If we look at this little graphic on the right-hand side, I mean, this is our program. This is the tree of our program. And we're going to have the players. We might even go into the individual whys, but the coach is going to have their purpose, their reason they're running that program. And then we're going to have these nests. And these nests might be within that tree, the goalkeepers, the defenders, the forwards, the breakdown or the blocks of the team. But then we're going to have the team's overall why. And I think we build it through this system, through our individuals, through our blocks, and then into our organization, so that we produce one from many. And it becomes our identity, our reason, our purpose that we play. So why might we need to adjust this? There, James said he looks at it every year, and I believe we really do have to look at it every year. That picture to me on the right is quite striking. If I look at that picture in 5 years' time, I might be thinking, what the heck happened to us? But it's maybe there's a reason this summer, this spring, November, you come into your new team with a different why. What happens when 10 of your players may go down with COVID? Well, what would be the purpose of your game then? Do you have enough players to cover that? So we've got to understand these ideas. Other areas that might support or challenge your why is a new coaching staff. If you're new into this team, you've been hired for a reason. You've been hired into that school for a purpose. Did the previous coach do extremely well? Are you going to take on his legacy or her legacy? Or are you going to create your own future and your own destiny? You've still got a lot of the same players. Are you going to recruit new players? Are you going to cut some players from your team maybe? And if we know where we're going, our purpose, we can do it through the process and not necessarily make it a personal activity. And if the players have all bought into this, great. How many players did we graduate? Just come out of a team. Last year, graduated 12 players out of their varsity team. Next year, they're going to graduate 16 out of their varsity team. That's quite a big change. Newly recruited players coming in. What do they add to it? Are they going to be bought in to the team's reason and purpose, the reason why we play? Are they physically going to be part of the team? Have they agreed to be part of the team? When a previous player has been misused or abused, when they've lost their confidence, lost their trust in their teammates, or lost their trust in you as a coach, maybe we challenge our why. Maybe we read it in a deeper system. And then it comes down to the unified sense of purpose. If we're all on that same bus, all going in the same direction to the same destination, we're going to get there. Now it's down to the driver. That driver's probably going to be your coach. And if he can get us there to that destination, he's got the map, we can support that idea. So that team, together everybody achieves more, is us in total. Coaches, players, managers, support staff. And if we're all on this same area and we all understand it, we're going to get there together. So the idea of this sort of presentation is to help you find this and help you doing this to produce a workshop type mentality to grow this for yourselves. So in this workshop, we're gonna have to choose a facilitator to run this and oversee this. Is it going to be you, the head coach? It could be, but you might come in with a few biases. Do you bring in your athletic director to introduce your team to a person they may not see, but the person that you report to and you trust? Could it be a coach of another team, a volleyball team, a basketball team that you know and you trust, and he can facilitate and answer questions from the unknown or from a perspective that might not be biased? So think about this as you choose this facilitator. And once we do this, we're going to start to prepare the session. We'll bring all our, let's call it a varsity team. We'll bring all our varsity team in and we'll break them down into groups. And And when we break that into these groups, is it going to be defenders and attackers? Is it going to be midfielders, defenders and attackers? Is it going to be freshmen, sophomores, juniors and seniors? I mean, this is how you're going to plan it. But what I'd like to say is we're going to use the team leaders to support this. It's a great leadership activity as you're going through pre-season. Are those team leaders? I mean, to me, the goalkeeper is a very valuable team leader. But do we title them as a captain? Do our captains actually have the leadership qualities we're looking for in our team, or the criteria of leadership we offer our team? Or are they just senior players? How are they selected? If they're selected socially, chances are they're going to be a personality leader and not have the character or the credibility for when times get tough. But within this team, Damien Hughes talks about cultural architects. Now, these are the leaders that don't have a public voice nor a public position in your team. Think about your team now. Think about your team deeply. Who sort of runs the dressing room for you? Who do people listen to that aren't a titled captain, that aren't put in a position of power, but they are gained from a position of respect? And these are the cultural architects. This is the time when you want to support and use these players to grow your team. Now, as we build this, we as coaches, facilitators, have to understand the difference between the why, the how, and the what, and how they process each other. So that why, the collective purpose and belief in what we are doing. Why do we believe? Why are we here as a team? And then how are we going to achieve where we want to go? Our guiding principles. What's going to take us there? This principle, these behaviors. What values do we stand for? Do we believe in? And then, that destination, the products, the services. What are we trying to prove here? We spoke there with James. He wants to provide a good passing environment, connected passing environment for his team. How is he going to achieve that? What's he going to do to support that? All right. So we've got to understand this why, the how, and the what, but as a team. And as we come through this, we're going to achieve this in the following way. So we're going to get our team together, and let's say we're going to work defenders, midfielders, and attackers in our groups. And we've got 3 groups. And our defenders will incorporate our goalkeeper, obviously, because the goalkeeper is part of the defense. So we're going to put these groups together. And we're going to ask them, and this might be tough if there's freshmen coming into your team, but it's a great leadership factor for your freshmen to trust and connect the players above them. They might not have a lot of say, but they might have a lot of listening. And we don't ask the guys to get together, girls to get together, to form specific stories of when they have felt most proud to be a member of their team. What has really puffed their chest out? What has really made them extremely proud? And just like I asked you in the beginning, what do we look like when we're playing at our best? And then we're going to challenge these groups, and we're going to put them in groups. And this might take an hour. It might take longer. But we're going to have them sort the areas out. But it's specific. Now, we as a facilitator, we can walk around, we can support it, we can sit in with the groups, we can inspire them a little bit, we can guide them a little bit, but we can't tell them. This is the players. Now, if your facilitator is your athletic director, why not put the 4 group coaches or the 3 team coaches into a group as well? And have them go through the same actions as your players. And then once we got these stories together and they create their stories, we're going to have them share these stories to everybody in our group. They're going to talk to each other, share the story. And we're going to, maybe the facilitator does this, or maybe the other groups do this. What resonates? What are the top parts of these stories that they share that bring in the cause and belief of our team, of who we are and what we stand for? And each group can question the other groups. They can say, what were the emotions you were going through when you were in the semi-final and the goalkeeper didn't distribute the ball to the flank well enough, and he was countered and intercepted. What were the emotions going through you as you were that player that intercepted that ball? You read it early. So how can we grow, build, and develop this and get them to own it, get them to make it sort of theirs? Because it is theirs as the team. Right? And this will take a time, but we'll grow out of it. And then what we're looking for in these group conversations, and we'll come into this a little bit deeper in a minute, is the specific contribution. What was the specific contribution to the team when they were playing at their best? What is the specific contribution the defense brings to the game? How have you contributed as Reagan soccer team or as Coppell soccer team or as Flower Mound soccer team to the big picture, to the school, to the district, to soccer, to high school? So we've got to ask ourselves about this contribution factor. Now, this is the impression you leave as a player on the team. Do we do this as our previous seniors are leaving? And now they've had that 4-year experience playing for your high school. So do we create as a final leaving activity exercise your seniors that are just about to go off to college or future life? Do they support this? Do we bring an old player back in to support this that maybe has played in college for a long time or has finished college and has come back in, or is now one of your coaches? It might be a player on another coaching for another team. Does he still see this purpose, this belief, this reason in his old or her old high school team? And we're not talking about a product when we talk about contribution. It's the process supporting the culture. What decisions did we make? What did we contribute? And this is very, very important as we grow this. All right? What does each player give for the team? How does each player in that defense envision their defense? What are they going to give? And we're going to see very, very quickly if they turn around and say, oh, I'm going to play my best. No, we've got to delve into that. We've got to get in tighter. Oh, I'm going to give out maximum effort every game. Can you give maximum effort every game? What does maximum effort look like? How are you going to measure maximum effort if you're a defender? What are we going to strive to achieve from that? And these questions have got to be asked and they've got to come in so that we can get this right when we start drafting it. And then the second factor we're going to look at from these conversations, these group areas that we're in, is what was the impact? So if I contributed X, what was the impact Y? So cause, effect, causation. Every consequence has an effect upon the individual and the team. So as we discuss this and we facilitate this pre-season, end of season, whatever it might be, or we discuss over our previous why to see if this is still whom we are. What was the impact? What did it allow us to go on to be? Does your high school program value placing players in college? What was the contribution that led to the impact of you getting 7 signings this year? What was the contribution that led to the impact of you getting out of conference and into playoffs this year? What impact have we left on others? And this is the outcome to our contributions. What have we done to others? What have, if you maybe cut players from a team, what impact, what effect has that had on your why? Is your why strong enough to allow you to look at it and say, this is who we are. This is what we do. And if you're not part of that and you're not achieving that, then you're not part of our purpose or our belief. And we've got to remove you from that. Because if you're not for us, you might be rolling against us. And that's going to be a challenge. So once we've got this together and we've taken our groups, and our groups have come presented, we've listened to their contribution, we've listened to their impacts, we've challenged them, and we've broken it down. Each group now is going to draft their why statement from their notes. And it's going to be simple and clear. When we draft this why statement, we're going to have a to. And then we're going to have our contribution. And then it'll be maybe a comma, then a so that, and then it'll be the impact. Do we have to put so that in it? Not necessarily, but it's part of the process. And it might be very, very long to start with. I say long, it might be 2-3 sentences. How can we now chop out words that make it effective and dynamic, but simple, so that everybody can remember it? And when challenged why we made that decision, we can reflect it back to our purpose, maybe our mission. But we need to express this in a language that resonates with our team. It's our team's language. It's not maybe grammatically correct even, but it's what we believe is our purpose, and it's just a draft. So once we create those drafts, we'll take those drafts and we'll look at them as a group again. This could take 2-3 hours to achieve, sometimes maybe even longer. But once we've drafted these whys, we then compare them with each other. Does the defense block's why sound, look, resonate to the midfielders and to the attackers? You as the coach, seeing the big overall program, is this what you believe your program is? And sometimes it can be a little bit shocking, because you might believe your program is something it actually isn't. And this has come from the people within, because you've asked them. You know, sometimes we'll have this question, you know, I really believe as a coach, I care more about this than my players. Why don't my players care as much as me? And chances are our visions or our missions might be slightly different. Have we translated them? Have we transferred them? Have we ever spoken about this in general? And it's not wishy-washy. It's trying to all get on that same bus. And if we're on that bus, then we can work it through. Once we're on, yeah, I agree. Some are going to sit at the back of the bus. Some are going to put headphones on. Some are going to want to learn how to map read. But a couple of you will be driving it. What happens if that driver is sick for the day and he's not there? I just recently saw it in the SEC tournament. One of the teams in the SEC tournament, their head coach had COVID. I think it was Kansas or Mississippi. Their head coach had COVID. Their assistant coach had COVID. And they had their almost brand new third level coach on the field running quarterfinals of the playoffs in the SEC. Was he bought into what he needed to be bought into? Did he have the same beliefs and ideas and action? Maybe he was junior, maybe he was inexperienced, maybe he'd been with them for 10 years, but was he on there? And so we'll get these together. And one of the ones, we do this as a task within our leadership class at University of Texas, San Antonio, in coaching leadership, and we get them to create their own team whys.
Hey, Coach, let me jump in. We had a question in Q&A pop up. Do you have an example of an effective why that may apply to a high school program?
Yeah, great. We're just breaking into those now. So okay. As we go through the next 3 or 4 slides, we'll result. Originally, I gave you my personal why at the top. I'll break down to my academy why, the reason why I run an academy, and then I'm going to break into these areas of sporting team whys that we've gone through this process and created as well. And that's a really powerful question, because it can't be something of somebody else's. It's not best practices. You're not copying somebody else to try to achieve a level. And when you do use best practices, you'll only get as good as the person who had that practice, if you can define it in that way. So when we use these team whys, this is original. It is nothing to do with anyone else's. It may look similar, but it's original to your team. Otherwise, you're going to be driving 2 or 3 buses. And so this picture here, when we tried to make these, we tried to also choose in it what picture reflects our why. Now, I said in that previous presentation, according to Sir Clive Woodward, the 2007-2003 England rugby coach and Olympics head organizer, if you use a picture or you paint a picture, it's going to hit 60,000 more stimulus points in your brain than words. So think about that when we're coaching. When we start talking about an activity or explaining an activity, the players are lost after the first 10 words or 10 seconds. However, when we draw and paint that picture of that activity or use different stimuli, it retains knowledge. It retains future visions. And so this picture here, to inspire and support people to find success through their purpose so that they can make a positive impact on others. And working a chain link going up a hill. Now, I look at that as a team's why. Now, my personal why is about inspiring players. I read this, should I readjust my personal why to be about inspiring people? Because part of my philosophy is you're not just a player, you're a person first. And I've got to treat you as a person to get that player out of you. If I treat you as a player, you're just a tool. And if you're a tool, that means you're an object. If you're an object, that means I'm just managing you. Leaders lead people, managers manage objects. What are you? So this is one example of it. And as we draft these whys, and we get this why draft, we're going to come into it and we're going to then start to specifically draw this down. And we're going to refine this together. And as a team, we're going to take all these ideas, all these draft whys, and we're going to go through them. Maybe we stick them all up on a whiteboard and we start saying, yeah, I like that word. That word applies to me. That's a good contribution. You know what? I don't think really that statement over there from the defenders, I can't see what they're actually contributing to the team here. They're contributing maybe to themselves individually, or they may be even taking. So I can't quite use that, or I shouldn't use that. And we've got to go through it and break it all down. And then we've got to create our final one or our final two maybe, and share it with the players. Maybe we share this with a couple of past players, or with the athletic director, or with a parent. That's a bit trusting for you, isn't it? Going outside the circle. And once you've got your statement, is this who we are? Could they, if you said this to somebody, could they physically turn around and say, yeah, that's San Antonio High School soccer team. That is what you are. That is whom you stand for. I can see this being you. And so you get this feedback from people that weren't even involved in it. And it relates. So we're asking again, do we have any examples of this? This is the example of my academies. So this is our team why. You saw my original why in the beginning. This is the team why, or the academy why. This is what we do. We inspire soccer players to play with freedom, so that as an academy, we can upskill soccer through the investment of the unseen hours. Now, my academy that I evolve here in San Antonio is a technical training academy. I take players and I support and grow their technical game, support and grow their decision making, their processes. We run teams in the summer and we take them abroad to Europe and places, and we play off as teams then. But our purpose is to grow the player so we can give them back to their team and make them a stronger, more technical player, not to try and recruit them in any way. And we gain that trust from the clubs, I really believe, because they know we're not looking at recruiting nor taking their players. We're looking at trying to make the bigger picture of soccer stronger. And we call this the unseen hours. What you do when nobody is watching. How do you make yourself better? Do you just talk a good game? Or do you actually invest in that factor of the game? And we got together. I couldn't necessarily get my academy together here because there's like 1,000, 1,200 players there. But I got the coaches and the coaching staff together and worked it through them, because now if we're all on that same plane, we can work that forward. Any other thoughts or questions at the moment?
I had one that popped up is, what do you do when team's culture doesn't match the coach's desired culture?
Okay, so what do you do when the team's culture doesn't match the coach's desired culture? I would then turn around and say that the coach is in a controlling world. And if the team decides to choose a different culture to the coach, team might be 18 players, coach is one. I think that coach is in the wrong place. He's going to try and hammer a square peg through a round hole. And if we think back to Stephen Covey, he talks about there being 3 circles. Your circle of control, of everything that you can control that's within your circle. And then you have your circle of influence, expanding out of that you can add or support control to, or you can influence. Not forgetting that we are always an influence as a coach, maybe positive, maybe negative, but we're always an influence. But then outside of that circle, even bigger and pushing further, we have what's called our circle of concern. And we have no control over that circle of concern at all. Things in there are other people's results, the weather, the size of the field, the referees. I'm concerned this referee is biased. You have no control over that at all. So we've got to stick to the areas that we can stick to. And if we've given this, we've trusted our team with finding their purpose and their reason, and it's not the same as yours as a coach, I think you've just won. I think you just won the lottery to figure out how you're going to win your season, because it's going to have nothing to do with X's and O's. They've just allowed you to pre-play every game before you've played it, because now you as a coach have to self-reflect on your reasons why you're so different and why you've come in. Would that make sense? Would that make sense, James, as an answer?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So as we come through this, then I think we as a person can find out our own why, and we can question our own why, and we do it on our own. We do it if you're married, you do it with your spouse, you do it with your friends, you do it with your close family. And I think it's probably, this is a secondary presentation on the team from your own personal why. And on that previous question there, what is my why going into this team? Am I trying to go into this team to sell myself or to create my ego? Or am I coming in here to grow young men and young ladies? Am I coming in here to share the game with them? And we can research this ourselves. There's lots of these online. The 3 books I used was Start With Why. That's how you're going to gain your personal why. And that talks a lot about, and please go and look up on the TED Talk, Simon Sinek's TED Talk, 19 minutes. We as educators, I believe we've all probably seen this. Or if we haven't seen it, we'll understand it. And I'd highly recommend that you go in and watch it. And this why is kind of our mission in life. It's the past. It's delved into the past. That's why it's permanent. And it doesn't necessarily change. It can be adjusted. It can be addressed as your personal why, but it shouldn't necessarily change. It's why you're here. And then you've got his next book was Find Your Why. And this was about discovering your why and your team's why. He calls it a tribe over a team. And then you've got his latest book called The Infinite Game, which is more about finding your vision for your team. And are you playing it, but are you involved in an infinite game, an endless game? Or does your game have a finite outcome? Very good reading there, very good listening to. I'd highly recommend we go through those ideas. And to conclude then, this is more of a workshop idea for us. This is a pre-season. So when we're going through pre-season, how can I cognitively get my team to think? How can I bring my team together? Yes, I understand we're going to go through our core values and our ideas. But often, we as coaches stimulate those core values and those ideas. They're not really the players. And if we're educators, or as John Wooden would call us, teachers, he doesn't class himself as a coach, he classes himself as a teacher. What are we actually doing with our players if we're not teaching them? If we're telling them, we're turning them into robots. Robots are an object. You're just now managing objects. And when they go wrong or break, we throw them away. So when our players, something happens in our team, we have confrontation, we have conflict, we have a moment when we're going through a losing streak. It's easy when we're winning. Winning is a deodorant. Winning covers up all the smells and all the problems. But what happens when we're not playing at our best? We can come back to this and we can read it and we can reflect upon it. And when we have our personal interviews with our players, they all created this. We can hold them accountable to it. What are they going to do to bring us, a team, out of this slump? By what we believe in, by what our purpose is, and how we can achieve it. Closing down, anybody have any final questions on this idea for us?
We just had another one come through. Would these group conversations be any more or less effective as a full program as opposed to the freshman, JV, and varsity teams?
Oh, great. Again, we breezed over this. I think, do we have now, coming in for I'm going to assume this, but coming in for our JV teams, they're probably going to be freshmen, possibly some sophomores in there. And I think this would be a great education for them to come in to support the growth of the varsity team, to connect with the players in the varsity team, to see the process that we're going through. It would also be a great opportunity, maybe beforehand, you figure out your program why with your coaches. Now that program why, I've been talking to a lot of high school coaches recently. Some of you guys, I mean, the workload going through you along with teaching, you're running a freshman A, a freshman B, a varsity, a JV A, a JV B, and a varsity A or a varsity A and B. That could be 6 teams within your program. Some of you are just running straight JV and varsity. Some of you are running JVA and JVB varsity. That's a big program. What is the purpose of our program? Remember I showed you that picture. If we went back to this picture here, as we come into the program, maybe the tree is now our program. And the nests are our teams within the our JVs and our varsities within the program. And then our individual areas are our teams. So yes, I think it's a challenge for you. I don't want to answer that question in the fact that I think it's a challenge for you. And what is the purpose of the physical purpose of your program? And so once we find out the physical purpose of our program, we can now work towards the actual purpose of our teams. And as part of the journey, being honest and self-reflecting immediately in this moment, I had to figure out my why before I could figure out my academy's why. Yeah, I run my academy, I lead my academy, but it's different to my personal why. So that sort of went through there. So yeah, I'd value that question. I'd definitely give it a further thoughts on that. Any other questions?
And one final one that we've had come through is, at what point do you give up on players who do not buy in or are slow to buy in to the values or vision that the rest of the group comes up with?
Okay, at what point do we give in? So this comes up quite a bit. So we've created this and we've believed in this, and this is part of us. Now, we spoke about cultural architects, these quiet players that lead within the system but aren't actually given a voice within the system. Aren't given a position within the system physically. We also have cultural assassins. And these are the destroyers of our system, of our program. These are the people that will talk behind our back. These are the people that will use social media to grow themselves and not the team. They're the individuals. I spoke slightly earlier about personality versus character leadership. If you're choosing somebody as one of your captains on their personality, that they socially get along with people, fine. If that's your reasoning for choosing that captain. However, if you're choosing your leadership, and this comes down to you as the overall leader of the program, if you're choosing them on a criteria of your purpose and your beliefs, and maybe you separate out a form with your purpose and beliefs, and every player on the team anonymously gets graded 1 through 5 on your values and purpose and belief of the team, and then everybody hands in that paper and you collate it, you might get shocked a little bit. And you might realize that the person you thought was a leader, very few other people thought that they were actually a leader when they're given an anonymous ballot. But they might be playing in social fear or social anxiety of this person. And you might find out a little bit more from your teams. And so if you do have these players that don't buy in, that don't come in, Sir Alex Ferguson talks about this a lot. As soon as he gets somebody in his program that stops buying into the program, he removes them. Think about it. David Beckham, problems. He removed him. It wasn't because he was a bad player, but he wasn't fitting the culture. He'd grown off in a different direction. And he went off to Real Madrid and places and performed outstandingly well. You've got Van Nistelrooy, moved on. You've got other players in other teams we've seen. Now, if we went back to Ronaldo stayed with Ferguson for an extra 2 years, and then he moved him on. But he didn't move him on because he was a bad egg. He moved him on because they agreed upon a length of time that he would play and work with Manchester United. So I think we have to agree and we have to be bought in to make this happen. But if you've got someone inside your team destroying it, we listen to them. We talk to them. We try to find out the reason why. If you know from behind, if they're having a hard time at home or a hard time somewhere else, try to understand, coming back to an original philosophy, understand the person and then the player. But if they're not buying into the group's chosen beliefs, then you've got to stop your bus, open the door, and ask them to leave. And it's not personal. It's part of the process. And you don't have to make it personal because now you have a process to evaluate and report on. Was that person character-based? Was that person wholeheartedly? Was that person willing to give? This might be your team why. And if they weren't willing to give and all they did was take, and we are accountable to our team and accountable to our program, so that if this player doesn't turn up to training, then he's not part of your team. He's not being accountable to your team. He might be the best player on your team. Do you really believe in the why that was created? Or are you going to manage him as the best player and utilize his skills to advance the level of your team? Yeah, if you've got, we've got to have, one of the biggest values I have in my academy is courage. And I think everything else stems down from the top of that. And so you've got to have the courage to make these decisions, but you're not making them on a personal basis. If you are, then we've got to address that as well. Any other thoughts, questions, maybe?
Nothing at this time.
So if you want to do something like this and you're looking for a facilitator to come in, we do this within the academy. We can come up and work with you virtually. We can come up and work with you personally, go through these ideas. If it's something that might be of value to you, please look at connecting to us through our email, through our Twitter, through our Instagram or whatever. I'd love to support the journey for you. It is a fantastic journey. And when we manage it well enough, we grow into it. In closing, I'd like to thank Tasco. I'd like to thank James for supporting and helping along this presentation, and for all you guys and girls that are listening in. I hope you have a fantastic season come the end of November, leading into the spring. Thank you very much.
All right. Hey, thank you, Coach Hull. Another great presentation. I know our coaches that were on are going to gain quite a bit from it. And then when we get the recording up as well, hopefully we get a lot of people to come back and view it as well. At this time, you know, we have our regional meetings are at 12 o'clock. So all current members, please get on there and